You're listening to Off the Rails in Romancelandia with the lkerSisters, a journey through all things indie romance related. Some language may not be suitable for all ears. Frequent use of sarcasm may occur. We're doing book club today. We're back for book club, and I'm really excited to be back for book club because not only have I missed everybody and seeing faces is fun, but this is one of my favorite books ever. It is one of my favorite audiobooks ever. It is gorgeous. Sin is gorgeous, isn't he? He's very distracting back there. He is beautiful. And this is one of those books where I read it and I listened to it and I was like, okay, everybody I know in the entire universe now has to listen to and read this book because I said so, because it's really good. And then we book clubbed it. So we got a chance to book club it in Blanket Fort. And I think we brought some new readers to the world of Sin and to Patricia Eddy's world, which is a really wonderful world. So thank you, Patricia Eddy, for coming on board with us. I know we are like chaos. I won't say chaos in a bottle, but we're chaos not in a bottle. And
we're just off the rails.
We're off the rails. So we're off the rails, the lkerSisters. And Shannon is joining us, who's one of the amazing readers who joined us for book club. And I think we may have a couple of other people who were joining who said that they might be joining late. And if not, they're going to have to watch it on the replay because we're not waiting anymore. It's time to chat about Storm of Sin. But first, Patricia, can you just do a quick intro of, oh, see, I said it and I conjured Wendy up right there.
Yay!
So Patricia, can you just do a quick intro, who you are, what you write, all the wonderful things that readers need to know about you and your world?
Okay, so I am Patricia D. Eddy. I write protector, romantic suspense, and paranormal romance. I also do some BDSM romance, though I haven't published any of those in a while, but they're coming
they're
again
really
at some
good.
point.
They are really good.
I have a whole nother series planned at some point, but I work full time in addition to being an author and an editor, and so like there's only so many hours in the day, and I already don't sleep very much, so you know. But anyway, so that is me. All of my characters, I call them beautifully broken because they all have what I would consider problems that all of us have. Like they have anxiety, they have PTSD, they have autoimmune issues, they have physical ailments, mental challenges, whatever. I try and be as broad as possible because I really want every reader to be able to see themselves in at least one of my characters at some point, and know that everybody, no matter what things you think about yourself, are not as you want. You are still worthy of love, you still deserve love, and you deserve your happily ever after in whatever form you would like it to be.
I love that. Thank you. And thank you for creating characters who are beautifully broken because I think we can all relate to them a little bit. Sometimes a lot bit. Now, little disclaimer about book club. This is book club. We are going to talk about the book. So if you haven't read the book and you don't like spoilers, you might want to go read or listen to the book before you come back and watch this episode because we're going to talk about the book. Got it, everybody? We're talking about the book. There will be spoilers. Okay, good. There we go. This Storm of Sin is a PNR. It does have some dark elements. It is suspense based. It is single person POV, dual POV. So we do get both main characters POV. And Patricia, why don't you just real quick tell us a little bit about your characters, a little bit about Sin, a little bit about Zoe. How did you come up with the concept, the inspiration for Storm of Sin, and where'd your characters come from?
Really, I would have to say the TV show Lucifer is probably the biggest influence, just because I absolutely love that show. I rewatched it, a lot of it while I was writing the sequel to Storm of Sin, Gabriel's Gambit, which comes out in a couple of weeks. But I just love the idea of an ancient being who adapts and who has that just ability to banter and to be both condescending and not at the same time. I think that was my favorite part of the TV show, is that Lucifer was at the same time incredibly caring, like in some ways almost like cinnamon roll caring, but at the same time definitely with a hard edge and a dark side, and very just sarcastic, and says what he wants and doesn't apologize for it. And so I wanted to really write a character who just sort of, didn't give a flying whatever about how he was perceived, because he knew he was the thing. So that's really where Sin came from. Zoe is just the type of person I wanted to be. Like, again, the say what you mean, the type of person who can come up with a comeback and actually say it, as opposed to me, who thinks of the comeback like an hour later and goes, oh, I really should have said that. So like, just she's confident even when she's not, and she can force that, or she can project that, which to me is, I don't know, that's how I want to be. I want to be able to just feel comfortable in my own skin even when I know I'm not, or I want to project that I feel comfortable in my own skin even when I don't.
Right.
Yeah. And I loved that about Zoe. I loved that she had that confidence. I loved that she had that ability to do, like, there were several, I think, of the what the fuck moments, I think, with her, where she was like, it just, even the start of the book where she's like, and I'm working where now? It was kind of like this moment of, we've all had that situation where we walk in someplace and we're like, this is not what I was expecting. And now I really don't have a choice. It's where I am. So I have to go with it. And she just kind of dove in and did what she needed to. And then she meets Sin, and her description of him is just wonderful. I think you posted that today somewhere, that you posted the description of him. And I was like reading it all over again. And I was like, oh my God, just falling right back into that scene.
Yeah. But it was on Threads, and I forgot how much I loved that when I was trying to come up with, oh, well, let's figure out something to post on social media. My partner is a pretty boy in a hot car with a swagger that could topple buildings. But he's also a demon. So like, it just like that. I have been told by readers a lot that I'm funnier than I think I am, because I never think I'm funny. I feel like I get, usually in most of my books, I get like one good line per book where I'm like, okay, this is funny. This is good. And I feel like so much of Sin and Gabriel is like all the best of my funny lines. Like, it's okay. This is just, all right, I was on a roll. I, took the funny pill, and it all just came out in one book.
I love that. And I love Gabriel. You keep bringing up Gabriel. So we're going to talk about Gabriel. And even going back before then, so Storm of Sin is completely standalone. You don't have to have read anything else. Once you read it, you will want to read everything else. I went back after and read, actually, I listened to Wicked Omens, because I'm on an audiobook kick right now. And I listened to Storm of Sin, so I wanted to go back and listen to Wicked Omens, which is the story of, it's Sin's brother, half-brother?
Yes. Half-brother. Yes.
Right.
Maddox.
And I loved that one. And it's, what I love about these is I don't want to call it a novella. It's not. It's a novel. It's just, it went so quickly. I didn't realize how many words I was listening to, because I was so into the story, that it was just, I didn't want to get out of my car. I didn't want to come in the house. I didn't want to stop listening to the book. I just wanted the next chapter, page, scene. And then it was over, and I was like, oh, Mm. So now we're getting Gabriel.
Yep.
And Gabriel makes an appearance in Wicked Omens, and then he makes more appearances in Storm of Sin. And Wendy was messaging also. Jason Clarke as Sin is perfection. Yeah, so we're going to talk about the audiobook because, yeah, he is perfection. And who is Gabriel? Okay, Patricia, tell us about Gabriel.
So Gabriel is the Archangel Gabriel. And his book is next. He is also voiced by Jason Clarke. So I have the same narrators, Jason Clarke and Maxine Mitchell, for both Storm of Sin and Gabriel's Gambit, because I just loved them so much. And as I was saying before we started recording, when we were just chatting, Jason's Gabriel is amazing. Jason's Azrael might be my favorite ever. And you will hear that in Gabriel's Gambit. So when I get to write Azrael's book, yeah, Jason's Azrael is something. But yeah, his Gabriel is just amazing. But anyway, Archangel Gabriel comes down to the earthen realm to because Sin calls him, and then sort of realizes that he's kind of involved with all of this, and he didn't know he was, and then gets down to the earthen realm and sort of realizes that he probably should have made different choices in his existence, and so then he remedies that. So
Okay.
in his book,
I am excited for that. When is Gabriel coming out? It's later this month, right?
October 25th. Yes.
I love that. Just in time for Halloween. Good
Yep.
Halloween reading. You did that really well.
Yep. And the audio will come out
like you
at the
planned
same
it.
time as the ebook.
Oh, awesome.
Right. Oh God. Yeah, it's almost like you planned that. And that's
Yep.
I just got the advanced listening copy for Gabriel's Gambit. So that's gonna be playing in the car very, very shortly. Only because I'm not going to be in the car today. So it's going to have to wait. But I love that you can listen to these one after the other, or you can listen to them individually. Because like I said, I listened to Storm of Sin first, and then I went back and listened to Wicked Omens, and I'm looking forward to Gabriel's Gambit. When we talk about Storm of Sin, and we were talking about Wicked Omens and then Gabriel's Gambit, so there is very heavy PNR. This is definitely paranormal. This is 100% the realm of angels and monsters and demons and all of that other wonderful stuff. And kicking from there, we've got these wonderful main characters. And when we were discussing in book club about side characters and main characters, one side character kept coming up, and it was Kunshin. So, and that was for me also. I was okay. Wendy's like, yeah, she knew exactly what I was going to say before I even said it. Wendy's popping into the messages.
The Yeti
Kunshin is the Yeti. And yes, right. See, everybody lights up when you're like, oh yeah, the Yeti. He was phenomenal. Like I wanted more Kunshin. I was like, I need more. And then you hinted at something. So are we going to see Kunshin again more?
Oh yes, yes. Kunshin is in Gabriel's Gambit, and I do want him to have a book, because I mean, how often do you see a Yeti? I mean, you just don't. Like you see all sorts of different types of shifters, but a Yeti is not exactly a shifter. He's a Yeti, and so my biggest challenge is figuring out how to write him and how to like pair him up with a mate, with him being a Yeti. Like I don't know. I have not, he's not, I don't really know exactly what's going to happen with him, but he's in Gabriel's Gambit. He will be in Azrael's book. And I'm hoping, because usually that's how I go about getting to know my side characters, is I keep bringing them back into other books, and they tell me a little bit more about themselves every single time I meet them and I work with them. And so yes, I'm hoping that by the time I finish Azrael's book, that I will really have a much stronger relationship with Kunshin, and so he will tell me what he needs. Because I'm not quite there yet. But yeah, he's a fascinating character. So
He really is. And they all work for Boo. So
yes.
explain how that came about.
I love that.
I do too.
I do not, I mean, this was back in 2020. So granted, you know, it was the beginning of the pandemic. We were all like on lockdown. I was probably not all mentally here. So I really have no idea how I came up with Boo and some of the other acronyms in the book, because I do think those are like some of my most creative work. I mean, the global habitant ocular scanning and something or other. I don't even remember what it is anymore. I have to look it up. But the ghost system, that's facial recognition, like all of these things. It was just, again, lockdown brain. I definitely think is part of what it is. But yes, I wanted everything in the world to be at that border of the absurd, because, you know, the type of thing where it is, if a human heard about this, they would just discount it as being somebody rambling about nothing that they needed to pay attention to, because it was so far out there that this is why they can operate, because everybody thinks that they're just a joke. If anybody was talking about working for Boo and working with werewolves, you would just say, oh, they're no, they're not being actually serious. They're just, this is just, they're making stuff up. So yeah,
But for people,
that's,
but for a reader with an open mind, it's totally plausible. I mean, I think
yes,
that's, I'm as I'm re-listening to it, I'm like, yeah, I'm sure that this exists somewhere because
yes,
this is very, very plausible. And
yes.
you know, it was well done.
I imagine Patricia in one of her sleepless nights going, ooh, that's it.
Yes, yes,
It's the,
yes.
the
I mean,
Bureau
yeah.
of the Occult and Others, right? Bureau of
And the
Occult
other,
and the Others. That's it. Right. And the
the
other.
Bureau of the
Yes.
Occult and the other. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And like I have like lists, and especially for Gabriel's Gambit, because I needed to come up with another agency for that book that couldn't be Boo, but had to be something else. And I went down pages of, okay, let's go with all of the paranormal type words I can come up with. All right, what could I make this be? And, you know, getting out the thesaurus, and all right, agency, bureau, division, operation, club, you know, all of these different things. Okay, well, what letter could this be? And what letter could this be? And no, this doesn't make any sense. And yeah.
I love that you put that much thought into it, though, because it's like, you could just say, oh, it's the this, and just like be on with it. But you put so much thought into it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm reading it, and I'm listening to it, and I'm going, yeah, okay, I totally get where that came from. It is so, like you said, it's the ridiculous and the sublime, but it's like, I can totally see that being a thing. It's very, kind of has those Men in Black vibes, but it's different. Julie, you were about to say something. I know you were.
Well, I've been trying to, Shannon had a great idea for Kunchin's mate. Maybe his mate is blind.
Yep.
Oh,
Or
Yeah,
And
because
she has like supernatural hearing and like vibrations that she feels and can get away.
Or maybe she comes from the Pacific Northwest.
There you go. I like that.
Because
oh my
series
God.
crossovers are amazing.
Oh
Yep.
my God. Yes. It's funny because when I was reading that, it was like, okay, it's a Yeti. It's not that far out of the realm. It is, but it is. But it's, if you read paranormal, eventually you come across everything. So, you come across shifters, you come across demons, you come across the occult. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, then I'm having like these series crossovers in my mind of, the Pacific Northwest and Bigfoot and Yetis and Appalachia. And Yeti is, oh shit. What, it's not Russian. Is it? No. Now I got to look it up because I'm like, okay, what's
Yeah,
the
me
origin
too.
of Yeti?
Nepalese.
Because
Because
I don't
I
remember.
Nepal.
yeah.
Is it Nepal? Yes.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Thank you. So like, okay,
Oh,
now
wow.
I'm like going countries and
Himalayan.
where it come from.
I think the word I
Himalayan.
was looking for is Himalayan.
There we go. Yes.
I joke that the first paranormal-ish book I read, I literally fell in love with it, but it's not super paranormal. It's kind of like paranormal light.
Mhm.
So when we were doing this, I'm like, oh no, I hope I like this. And I loved it. It's like, I think Wendy said something just enough. What'd you say? I gotta go back to your. Basically, it's just enough paranormal that it's still realistic, like,
Yeah.
and I feel like it's very contemporary. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed it. So
That was my
anyway.
question for you, Julie, because I know you are generally not a paranormal reader. And I knew that there were going to be some people when I recommended this one that they were going to be like, oh, it's not my thing. And I was like, try it anyway. Susie, yeah. And I was like, just try it. So if you guys were not paranormal readers, it wasn't your thing. So, okay, Julie, I'm going to put you on the spot to expand on that a little bit more about what were some of the things that brought you into it that you were like, okay, this has what I was looking for. This is good. I like this, because I knew you wound up really liking it. What were some of the things that really brought you into it?
Well, I think it's not so much the paranormal aspects, it's just how you create your characters and that protective. I mean, I'm a protector romance girl, so Sin is super protective. He is a grouch. He is grumpy, and that's another feature I like in men, clearly. So I don't know. I think it's just you are still creating the same types of characters that as a contemporary romance reader I like. You've just thrown in the paranormal elements. So I loved it. And
I
Jason
have
and Maxine.
I've been known to turn readers who didn't think they would like paranormal, because again, like you said, I mean, the only difference between my paranormal romances, most of them, and my contemporary romances is just the fact that there's magic and there are werewolves. I mean, everything else, in theory, I could take out the paranormal aspects of most of them and still have a book. It would just
Yes.
be, I'd have to change a little bit of the motivation. I'd have to, find a way to heal people who, have supernatural healing abilities, that type of thing. But the way that I approach the books and writing them and the characters is the same. And so I do think that makes me a little bit different from a lot of strictly paranormal authors, because and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I read a lot of paranormal romance, and it is completely paranormal, like steeped, every single sentence is steeped in the paranormal, and those are awesome too. But most of what I write is their contemporary, just with paranormal aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that really strong suspense level, because you
Mm-hmm.
are mostly known as a romantic suspense writer. Your larger series are suspense, military based, and that transfers over into Storm of Sin really beautifully because of what they do, because of their what they are doing specifically. Like, they are on a case to solve it's missing persons, say missing persons, but they're shifters, and
Right.
they are trying to stop all this from happening and solve this case. So it's very heavy protector, it's very heavy suspense. And then you throw in the fact that there are demons and shifters and yetis, and then there's Zoe, who, okay, spoiler, y'all, if you haven't read it, you've been warned. Zoe is human, but is she? So there's this huge twist. And I kind of felt it coming when I was listening to it. And you put little breadcrumbs in, which I loved, to kind of give little hints. And then that hit. And did anybody, okay, I just got chills again, just thinking about when that happened. Okay, who else kind of like when you learned the reality of Zoe, did anybody else stop the recording and have like this huge gasp? Like the
Yes.
I gasped was like,
I just got goosebumps just now too. It was up until that I
"See?"
thought I knew what was going to happen, and then I was like, nope, I had no idea. This is amazing.
Right? Okay, so I wasn't the only one. Ron, what about you?
Oh, same. Because I am a paranormal romance aficionado. I don't know whether that's really the right term or not. I read a butt ton of shifter romance and
No pun
fantasy
intended.
romance, and I write those also. So I mean, I think that I knew where I knew where I thought it was going to go, and I wasn't totally off the mark, but I don't think that I think that the exposition was really well done. You know, it wasn't, there wasn't so much there that you just like, all right, hurry up and say it, because you know, we know that this is going to happen. It wasn't like that. It was like, okay, so it fell with weight, and I think that doesn't always happen in shifter in surprise shifter situations. I think
Yeah.
that it was well done, really well done.
Susie.
Felt the same way. Well, I don't read much paranormal, but I was a little shocked. So yeah, I felt the same way when I got to that part. I was like, oh, is this what she's gonna do to us?
Yeah. And that's Wendy just said the same thing. It fell with weight. Like it did. Like it was there, you knew something was coming, but then it hit and it was like, oh my God. Julie, same.
Your mic's off, honey.
You're muted.
I know, that's why I was unmuting. You know, I think I knew something was happening. There was something, because why else would they have hired her? You know what I mean? So I was shocked, but not as shocked as maybe you guys.
Well, and I think part of it for me was I knew, like you said, I knew something was coming because you laid the groundwork for that really, really well. I think part of my brain was still trying to think, no, you're on the wrong track. And then when it happened, I was like, okay, I knew it, but at the same time, I wasn't ready for it. Like it was just the way it hit, I guess. So was that always the plan, Patricia? Because I know some authors are pantsers, some are planners. Was that always the plan for Zoe to actually be a supernatural type being also?
Yes. I always wanted her to, like, there needed to be a reason for her to have always believed in the other, in the world of the other. And her having an other background really just made sense. Now, I don't, again, it was lockdown and it was 2020. So in my memory, I have the memory of a goldfish. So I cannot absolutely guarantee that I always knew she was exactly what she is. I may have changed that a few times. I don't actually remember. I am pretty sure I knew what she was almost from the beginning. I'm not, I call myself a plotzer. Like I have a plot, but I don't necessarily have the most detailed plot. And usually when I plot things out, I will plot out the entire book, and then I will get 25% of the way in, and then, you know, the plot's going this way and the book's going this way, and just throw the plot out the window. And then sometimes I'll replot in the new direction. But yeah, I think she was pretty much always what she ended up being. But there might have been some small tweaks. But yes, I wanted her to be human and not at the same time. Like I wanted her to straddle those two worlds. And just because I so many of the books, like you have, typical paranormal plot is a paranormal guy with a human woman. And I like taking whatever people expect and just, like, if they expect it to be this, like just tilting it, like not necessarily flipping it on its head, but just tilting it slightly so that it is not exactly what you expect.
Yeah.
That's where I think that's what makes it fun for me. is taking traditional lore and just tweaking it a little bit.
I think the fact that there was the connection, I think the fact that it was, because part of it is that she has this memory, but she doesn't. Like her memory only goes back so far. Was her grandmother or her aunt? Oh crap.
Grandmother.
Grandmother. It was a grandmother. Okay. That, she has these memories and then she doesn't have memories. And then bringing it, with Sin, like putting them together. It just, like you said, I can see where it's kind of going, and then maybe you had this, but then I don't know. For me, I think I always expected her to be somehow connected to the other. I did not expect the connection with Sin. I think that threw me a little bit. So that was the
that's a good
gasp.
point. That's a good point. Yes.
That was the gasp for me. So yeah. All right. So that did get you, Julie. You were like, okay, that you were okay.
Yeah.
Good. Like, whoo, we got Julie too. So I listened to it. I listened to the audiobook. I read it and then I listened to it again, maybe again. And we people who know me, people who have seen me talk about this, they know I have my favorites. Jason Clarke is most certainly one of my favorites, and I will listen to anything that he has narrated, including a cereal box and a phone book. But when I heard him as Sin, it hit different. Like it was. Did you have? Okay, I'm not sure this is the way I want to ask it, but I'm going to ask it anyway. You knew that this was going to audio.
Mhm.
Did you have him in mind, or was this coincidence and it just worked so well?
I had been wanting to have Jason narrate a book for me for quite some time. I did not write this book with him in mind. It just, when I finished the book, and this was one of the ones that I finished and then thought, oh wait, I need to book narrators, as opposed to Gabriel, which I knew which narrators I was going to use going in, and so I could like tweak a little bit of Gabriel to match Jason. But yeah, I did not know that going in for Sin. But I knew I wanted Jason to on one of my future projects, and again, I felt like it was a very good match when I was finished with the book, because I didn't book the narrators at all until the book was actually done. In this case.
Well, thank you for booking Jason. For Sin.
It's probably one of my favorite Jason books.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Why?
That's awesome.
Why, Julie?
Well, you're gonna make me say this on. I like Jason. Jason's a great guy. His voice is nice. He is not my favorite narrator, and that's okay, because Lord knows he has a large enough following, right? I don't know. It just was different. I don't know if it was just the way he acted out the characters, or yeah, it was different.
It hit right. It hit right.
And
that's it. There are some characters where you hear it in a certain voice and you're like, they are the character. Like it just fits perfectly. Maxine, I think for Zoe, for me, was the same way. I think Storm of Sin was one of the first books I'd listened to that she narrated. And I was instantly hooked by her voice as that character. And they came together really beautifully to create those two characters in audio. The visuals that come with the narration, we've talked about this before with narration of there are books that are read to you, and then there are books that are performed. And I really felt like this was a performance level book from them, where the visuals were just phenomenal. As I was listening to it, I could visualize what was happening. And that is one of those things where I'm always grateful when the right narrators come together with the right book from the right author, that they can create this, I can't think of the word, this immersion into that story. So I I appreciate you using them for this book, because It was really, really, really good. And
Yep.
Julie just asked a question that I will answer in a couple of minutes on the and that's why I'm looking distracted, because I'm trying to catch up with the notes. There are a couple of people who
I think
thing.
what it is with Jason in this particular book is how he performed each character so differently.
Yes.
Like he was, you know, a lot of times a male's voice is a male's voice. He might tweak it a little bit. His truly changed into that character. Like you felt that. Like that's my opinion.
I forgot I was listening to two narrators. It sounded like a cast recording. I was having trouble thinking of sometimes the fact that it was just two people. So I don't know if that's similar to what you're saying, Julie. And yes, we did, just so we know, Patricia and I spoke about this. We did invite Jason and Maxine. They were both out of town this weekend. So they both messaged me back. They were super kind. They are both excited about Gabriel's Gambit. Appreciated being asked back on that. And I am going to see both of them in Philly next month. They are both signing at Indies Invade Philly, and I'll see them there. So I don't know, we might have something up our sleeve for that. We'll see. But
I'll see Maxine this week.
Oh, you will? That's right.
Yeah, awesome.
Please hug her for me, because
I will. I love her.
She's
She's
wonderful.
awesome.
And I did fangirl over her a lot at Knockout. I was trying to remember which one it was. Yeah, that was the message from Julie that made me freak out, because I thought, oh my God, there's something wrong. And then she's like, you have to get over here. Maxine Mitchell is here. And I think I ran people over to get to the other side of the room. Not sorry. It was worth it. She is so kind and very talented.
She is. And she and Jason both did a phenomenal job on Gabriel. I just finished listening to the masters last week, and there are, again, like there are parts of Gabriel that, like, I mean, I wrote it. I know what happens. I know, like, I know what I'm supposed to be hearing. But there are parts of that book that I forgot I was listening to something I wrote, which is saying something. Like the emotion that they put into, especially like the last third to quarter of the book, which, you know, again, is where all the suspense and the, you know, all the shit hits the fan type thing, and that's where you want it all. Like their performances, especially in like the last third to quarter of the book, are just, I mean, absolutely amazing. Like it, again, if I can forget that I am listening to a book I wrote, like that is something.
Now I'm even more excited about it. I know, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be listening to it this week in the car, everywhere. I'm going to make up places to go so that I can listen to it.
Do you have a favorite scene?
In Storm of Sin?
Yeah.
In Storm of Sin, yes, I even remembered to pull it up on my iPad before we started this, because just in case that came up. I think my favorite scene really is, well, okay. It would have to be a tie between two. The first is when Gabriel shows up the first time. So when we first meet him, and I just like how he appears and how Zoe and Sin's reaction to him. But really the scene that is my favorite, and again, this is sort of a spoiler, so if you have not read it, I'm not sorry, because I mean, at this point, the spoiler is when Sin and Zoe are in the parking garage, and the bad guys are, you know, coming after them, and Sin is injured, and I will let's see, I will read part of this. Sin says, let's see, I can get us out, I manage, my voice cracking on every other word, but only if I promised her I would not feed from her, but if I do not, we will both die, or worse. I have no choice. Better to beg for forgiveness than to watch her descend into madness at Thorn's hand. Zoe arches a brow. Holy shit, asshole. Are you asking if you can feed from me when there's a guy with a fucking rocket launcher reloading 100 feet away? That is my favorite scene. Because I just the idea of this, you know, kind of asshole demon / angel going, okay, I made a promise, I can't break it, but we're about to die. Like that, yeah, that's my favorite scene.
It definitely showed both personalities.
Yes.
In that scene.
Exactly. It really, really did. And you know, you think Sin's a demon, so he's always going to be out for himself, but you learn very quickly he's not. He has standards and he has, you know, promises and all these other things. And Zoe is I love that. She's like, really? Really? This is when you're going to have a moral dilemma with yourself? Get over it. And it does, like Julie said, it shows that the two personalities of them and within themselves just kind of think about it. So they're not your stereotypical, they don't fall into a mold, I guess. And I think that scene shows that really well. Yeah. Oh, I love that scene. That was fantastic.
I happened to be listening to it this morning while I was cooking waffles. So I got some interesting feedback from the rest of my family about just exactly what I was listening to. And it was a little bit long, a little bit later scene than that. A little bit more explicit.
Oh yes, the bedroom scene.
And yeah, so there were some lifted eyebrows and some so this is what you
Yes, and it's worth it and it's wonderful. And if you're not listening, you're missing out.
I said, oh, it's totally work.
It's
it's work related.
100%.
Absolutely.
It's all work related, 100%. So we talked about how it's different. I'm just trying to run through some questions that we had. And okay, so going back to some general stuff, because a little bit about you, if people want to read Sin or listen to Storm of Sin, they definitely you need to do that. Just listen to it or read it, just immerse yourself in it, enjoy it. And then Gabriel's Gambit is coming up. We know that. You can go back before Storm of Sin and read Wicked Omens, which is wonderful. Why'd you start writing? So we know why you wrote Sin, fever dream madness during lockdown. Perfect. But you've been writing for a long time. Why did you start writing to begin with?
I have always written. I'm an only child, and when I was growing up, we lived out in the country, and so I didn't have friends around. Like if I wanted to go on like a play date, my parents had to drive me somewhere, and they had to drive me like 40 minutes somewhere. Like it wasn't like they couldn't just drive me down the road, or they couldn't like ever just like send me off on my bike to go bike to a friend's house. Like that did not happen. And as an only child, I think you develop like that imagination or that need to entertain yourself. And so I've just always made up stories in my head because I didn't have other people around, other kids around to give me that outlet. And my parents were not huge on like screens. I mean, yes, I watched TV, I watched cartoons, but like not heavily. Like it was, TV time is here, and then then there's the rest of the time no TV. And so yeah, I've one of my first memories is really sitting at their kitchen counter on a typewriter and typing out like 1-page stories that were probably horrible, and I do not think exist anymore, because I don't think, my parents didn't keep, at least I'm assuming they didn't keep any of that stuff. At some point, maybe I will find out I'm wrong. And then I will cringe. But like, I was doing that when I was, 8 or 10 years old, and I'm sure they were horrible and made no sense, but still it was like, that was what I did to pass the time. And then I stopped for a while because life and, all the different things that happen in high school and college and all of that. And then I started writing again when I was going through some really icky personal stuff, and getting divorced. And that's when once I started writing at that point, which I did because I needed to process emotions, and I needed something for me. At that point, I haven't stopped. I didn't necessarily publish anything for a while, because that was back in 2003 or 2004 when I started writing again, like regularly. And then I published my first book in 2013.
So that's over a decade
Mm-hmm.
that you've been writing. And do you have a favorite character that you've brought to life on the page so far?
People always say it's like picking your favorite child.
I know,
And
I was
yes,
gonna
I mean,
say, I'm asking you to pick a child.
yeah, I mean, I do think it is like that, but at the same time, Riker has always been, and I think will always be, my favorite character. Both because he's just about everyone else's favorite too, but also because he has changed the most. Because he's been around since 2019, I think, is when I published his book. But actually, no, he's been around since 2017, because he was in the first book of the Away from the Keyboard series. And to see his evolution from the first book to the last book is like, I'm continually, every time I talk to him, I discover something new about him. And he has changed, I think, the most of any of my characters, because he has literally evolved. He has evolved like we all change and evolve as things happen in our lives. And I think a lot of times when as authors, when we write characters, this is why I write interconnected standalones, and I bring characters back, because I want to see them change. I want to see how what they go through changes them, and how they don't just change a certain amount because they fall in love. They continue to change after that. Like Sin is different in Gabriel than he was in Sin. I mean, not radically different, but there are parts of him that are slightly different and slightly softer and slightly more understanding in Gabriel than he maybe was in Sin, because again, he's had, Gabriel takes place just a few weeks after Storm of Sin. So like, he hasn't changed that much because it's only been a few weeks, but as we see him going forward, he will continue to change, and Gabriel will continue to change in later books in that series.
Yeah.
So yeah, Riker is my favorite because of what he and I have been through, and how I have been able to show his evolution or his growth.
So
I love that.
you mentioned that you started writing again seriously as you were going through a divorce. How much of your life experience influences your writing now? I mean, I'm sure that did then. What does it continue to?
Yes, absolutely. There are, and not, I would say most of my books have a piece of me, of me in them, in one way or another. There are some books that are very, very much me, to the point of, there are some books where I have literally taken things people have said to me and put them in books, to process them. I have taken whole lines and whole like scenes from my life and put them into some of the books that you would necessarily not necessarily think were actual things that have happened. But yes, and most of my characters, trying to think how to phrase this. I was trying to figure out at one point how to write a character that had a challenge. I don't even remember which character it was at this point, but had a challenge that I had never experienced. And I had to like figure out, okay, well, what are they feeling? And it was, some form of helplessness and not being able to like affect change. I'm like, okay, well, when did I feel that way? Okay, well, I felt that way when I was, before I made the decision to get divorced from my first husband. And so like it's taking those emotions and then again tweaking them to no, this character was not in a relationship she couldn't get out of. She was, you know, she had a health problem she couldn't solve. And so, but it's like taking that translation. And so there is definitely me in every single one of the books that I write.
I love that. And I think it helps authors connect with themselves through their writing. You know, we do a lot of therapy through writing, always have. And I think as a reader, it helps me connect so much with an author and their stories when I read something and I'm like, it's so in depth, it's so real, the feelings are so genuine, the emotion is so raw that you're like, this is a kindred spirit moment. This is a moment where I really identify with the character, but I know by identifying with the character, I'm identifying with the author. And it tends to bring me into more of their books, more of their stories, because there's a real connection there where you can say, I understand how they were feeling and I recognize something in them that I see in myself, and it has helped me too. There are books I have read in the last couple years that have been very cathartic and have helped me through some very difficult situations because of what the characters went through. And I know I'm connecting with the author on that level as well, because there's no way you can write something that genuine without having felt something similar. Maybe not the same exact circumstance, but those emotions, those feelings, and those connections are so real.
Yeah, it lends an authenticity to the emotional draw that you can tell when somebody is writing from observation as opposed to experience. And I think that the level of authenticity in Patricia's books it's pretty in your face.
Yes.
I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way.
It. No, the best way. It's a good thing. Yeah. And I appreciate it because I know I'm going to get honest and genuine and raw. And there's it's the holiday novellas, and I can't think of Mocha's.
Mistletoe and Mochas and Love and Libations.
Yes. And I'm reading them and I'm like, these are novellas, but they don't read like novellas. Like they're very emotionally deep and the connections between the characters are very real. And, you know, reading through those is like, because I like reading holiday novellas. Holidays come up and I go into novella mode. And a lot of times they're fun and they're frivolous and they're kind of, you know, okay, I can read this and I'm going to read it and it's going to be done. And I'm going to read another one. I'm going to be done. I sat with those for a bit because they're very, you know, deep trivializes sometimes. I think you say that word deep, everybody's like, whatever, but it really was emotionally stirring and very connective. And I think it says a lot about an author when they can take something that is so emotionally present and put it in your face, and you want to cry and you want to scream and you want to rage, and at the same time you feel really seen. So
Love and Libations was my first marriage, basically. That book was very much real life, a lot of it. So with, you know, extra dramatization because obviously, yeah, fiction.
I just got chills again because that's that reality of knowing that somebody went through that and that the writer's pouring their heart into these books. And then we're reading them from a perspective of it's fiction, but it is, but it isn't. It's raw and honest and real.
Is it hard to get feedback from readers about work that is so personal?
I have been very lucky that all of the feedback that I've gotten on the books that are the most personal to me has, like, anyone who has contacted me directly has been very, very positive, or at the very least very so one of the themes with Love and Libations is that abuse is not always physical, because the heroine was in a very abusive relationship, but her ex never hit her. And that was a very important thing for me to, an important story for me to tell, because so many times we don't, like, society does not necessarily recognize emotional abuse as abuse. And it absolutely 100% is. And that was my first marriage. Was, I mean, he never laid a hand on me, but it was abusive nonetheless. And so like that was a very difficult story to tell, but it was a very necessary story to tell. And again, I consider myself very fortunate that everyone who has connected with that story and who has sent me personal feedback on it has been of the thank you for writing this, because I didn't realize that this was abuse. I didn't realize that I was in an abusive relationship. Now I see it. Now I can talk about it. Now I can understand it. So yes, I mean, there is that moment every time I get an email, a reader email about, say, that book or about the other book that is intensely personal to me, which is Braving His Past, where there is fear. There is that stab of fear of, okay, what if they have something negative to say about this? How am I going to handle it? But I've been very, very lucky that all of the feedback that I've gotten so far, like the personal emails, have all been very, thank you for writing this, or I understand, or this helped me, or this helped me understand somebody else I know, or helped me understand, what this other person went through. So yeah, but there is that moment or kernel of fear every time that comes in of, okay, let me make sure. And there've been a couple of times that I have waited to open the email until a day that I felt stronger, just because, you when you pour your heart into something, there is always the chance of someone not liking it. And yes, I mean, no book, no matter how good it is for everybody. And that's just fine. Like, there's nothing, I've never cared all that much if I have readers that I love and I talk to all the time who don't particularly care for, say, one book of mine for one reason or another. Like, maybe it's just not their favorite trope. I completely get that. I have my tropes that I don't often choose to read, or that I will read rarely, just very occasionally, because again, they're not my favorite trope. But at the same time, I can still find, like, I'm not a secret baby person. I've never really understood the secret baby trope. But at the same time, one of my favorite books is actually Secret Baby. Like, I have no idea how that happened, but like,
it was well written.
It was, and it was just, it was done in a way that my usual confusion about that trope just did not matter. Like, which is why I've always been just try it once. If you don't like it, no worries.
Bingo. Yep.
So,
and it becomes more about the story than the trope.
yes.
Tropes have become a really big thing, and they're, we use them for advertising, and they're on graphics, and everybody wants to know what they are, and they wind up in reviews. And I always come back to, it's not, the stories are not tropes. There is, that's, Wendy just said the same thing. Story is more than the tropes. Some of these are things that might happen in the story, but it's the story that we're looking for. So like you said, if it's realistic, Secret Baby, okay, if it's done well. And I have read some that I'm like, damn, that was really done well. Like, I 100% believe that happened, that it could happen, that it would happen, that it did happen. And there are some where I'm like, come on. But that's every book. Like, okay, Storm of Sin is paranormal. Do I believe that there's an organization like Boo out there somewhere, and we're, there's shifters amongst us? And, I would say, well, I married a Yeti, so I kind of have proof of that. But, it's the depth of diving into the story where it's like, while I'm in the story, I 100% believe that this is possible, that this is realistic, that this could happen. Outside of the pages, no, I get it. They're not going to, I get it. But if the story is good, when the story is good, it pulls you in to whatever that situation is. Tropes and subgenres be damned. I just want a good freaking story. And like you said, when it's done well and it's done right, it just works. So if you haven't read paranormal, that's why I always tell people, they're like, oh, I don't read paranormal. I'm like, maybe you should. Maybe you just, I tried it once and okay, maybe you didn't read the right one. And if you don't like it, okay, cool. I'll totally back off. But if you tell me I'm not reading paranormal because I don't believe in blah, 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 get over not believing in blah, 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 because, you probably read or watched Lord of the Rings or, something else and you enjoyed that.
Or you believe your
Yeah.
neighbor is a billionaire who's going to sweep you off your feet.
Sweep your feet, right? Exactly. But get over it and just read it, because you don't know until you dive into the story and that story catches you that you're going to be like, oh, now I know why you like this.
I'm a perfect example. I mean, truly, I joke about it. I had to be paid to read my first paranormal book.
And you loved it, right?
I loved it. Like, it's one of my favorite series. And even so, even though I know I liked it, I still hadn't jumped ship to paranormal until you. And I loved it.
Yay. See? So. Yay. That makes me feel very happy. That's like the warm fuzzy.
Julie, I'm living proof you don't have to jump ship. You can love it all.
Yes, you 100% love it all. And I know we wanted to get some questions if Wendy or Shannon had any questions. And then I also wanted really quick, because other than an author, a writer, you're also an editor. So we'll throw that out there. And you make jewelry that I'm wearing right now. I don't know if you could see it.
I love it.
But I had to put on my Patricia heart, which I love to wear because it's super light. And yep, see, Julie's got a set. Oh, it's getting blurred out. Julie.
Getting blurry.
Oh,
there you go.
Turn off your background thing.
Take off your blur.
There we go.
There we go.
Oh, but then you see my mess.
Honey,
our life is the best.
We're all a mess. So, Patricia, tell us a little bit about the jewelry. What's the story behind the jewelry? How do people find it? How do they get it?
So it's the beautifully broken jewelry, and it's my logo, and I actually I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. Do I have something white? Maybe. There we go.
There we go.
There we go. That's better.
Yes.
So this is my logo. This is obviously a lot bigger than the jewelry is, but this is my logo on everything, and it's a stained glass heart. And I love just the idea, like when I picked it, when I found the photo, and I don't even have a photo of my logo anywhere like around my office. But anyway, when I found it, like it felt like it was exactly what I write, because stained glass is made from broken pieces of things, and it is something beautiful that is made from broken pieces. And so when I found that heart, I'm like, that is exactly what I am, what I want to be. So the jewelry came about because my husband wanted to do something sort of creative and bought a laser cutter, and so figured out how to turn my logo into something he could cut out of wood, and started playing around with different variations. And so now we have the jewelry with different color woods, and then I figured out that I could paint them and play with spray paint, and like that was just anytime I can work with paint and not have to like paint an actual image because I can't draw to save my life, was like, that was just amazing. So yes, so that was just amazing. And so I have a website, beautifullybrokenromance.com, and on there I sell my paperbacks and hardcovers and ebooks and audios, but I also sell the jewelry. And then we just came up with Christmas ornaments that I am
those
now doing, that are going to be red glitter and green glitter. And then I just tried a black ornament with glitter all over, which is just like, that's the next one that's going up, because that one is just the black and the glitter is just, it is something. So I am having lots of fun with spray paint, and my porch is about 18 different colors right now. Because it keeps escaping the big piece of cardboard that I put down to protect it. I mean, my porch needed to be repainted anyway, so I mean, this is fine. But yeah, my porch is a lot of different colors, and I have discovered that spray paint actually makes a halfway decent nail polish accidentally, because just at my
Don't have
hands too
time.
close to. Yeah, exactly. And I have no time to do my nails, and one of them is currently green because I have not managed to get the paint off of it. So, you know, oh well.
Hey, it's evidence of your hard work and your creativity.
Yep.
So, and I love it. I love just how light it is. So I forget that I'm wearing it sometimes, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, I do have something. So I had to make sure I had it on today. So Susie, did you have any questions, anything that you wanted to add to what we had talked about with the book or with Patricia or anything?
This is I don't normally read paranormal, and when Michelle's like, oh, paranormal is going to be the book theme, you can ask. In the group, I was like, really? Like, this is my least, like, I whined for like 2 days. They had to hear me whine about it. But I read it, and I fell down the bandwagon and went to go back to Wicked Omens, and now, yeah. Thanks, Michelle.
You're welcome. Love
Broaden
you.
your horizons.
I felt her eye roll all the way from where she was, all the way from the campground. I think you were out at the time, and I was
Yes.
like,
As
just
soon as she said, she's
read
like, I
it.
have the perfect book. And I'm like, okay. She's like, this paranormal. And I'm like, why? Like, she knows I hate this group.
And
There was an earthquake that day because she rolled her eyes so hard.
and see, sometimes you gotta take the leap. And I'm glad that you did. And I'm glad that you loved it. Did you audio or did you read it, Susie? I don't remember.
I read it, but now you guys are all talking about this audio, and I feel like I need to go back and feel a different.
You do.
You do. Yep.
You do.
I feel like
Just
I
do
have
it.
FOMO right now because you guys are all talking about the audio, and I'm like, okay, well,
It's really good.
See, there we
and
go.
I don't do
So
Audible either, so
mission accomplished. Now you have to read it. Or you have to listen to it. Now that you read it, you have to listen to it. Mission accomplished.
It brings it to
Shannon,
life.
it does. It does. It really does bring it to life. It's amazing. Shannon or Wendy, anything? You guys have been on mute. You guys can come off mute, say hi, and
Well, I do have one, but I don't know, because I know some authors are okay talking about this and some aren't. Like, obviously, we know Gabriel's coming. Is there an end in sight? Like, do you know how many more characters might get a book, or do you not have that planned out yet?
So I never know exactly how many characters are going to get books in a series, because I'll be writing along and all of a sudden somebody else will pop up, and somebody that I don't know, and will just sort of take over things. Again, that's the whole plotzer thing, that because initially I was planning on Sin, Gabriel, Lieutenant Grayson, or Commander Grayson, and Kunshin and Dion. So that was my initial plan. And I had no idea what I was going to do for Kunshin, and I still don't, but again, I have vague ideas for Dion. I have wisps of thoughts about Grayson. But then in Gabriel's book, we also meet Azrael and Lucifer. And so now I'm like, yeah, they will definitely get books, just because I already sort of know kind of what's going on with them, at least a little bit. And I know, I have a feeling that there will also be at least one more angel. I think Serial might get a book. Seraphiel will not. I don't think there's any way I can redeem him. And I don't think I want to. So, which is fine.
Please don't. He doesn't deserve it.
Yeah,
He
exactly.
doesn't deserve it.
Like he's
Like,
just
no.
always gonna. Yeah, like there are some characters you can redeem. Like, I mean, Gabriel did some not great things in Storm of Sin, or at least, you know, prior to Storm of Sin. But like he redeemed himself by the end. Like, I don't think there is anything Seraphil could do to redeem himself at this point. And I definitely don't think there's anything he could do to redeem himself after Gabriel. So so yeah, he won't get a book. He's just going to be like, you know, he'll be mentioned here or there. But yeah, there may be, when I get to Asriel's book, there may be other side characters who come in who demand that they get a story too. So yeah, I have a vague idea. I just never, I'm in the never say never camp. Because people keep showing up in my head. And then...
I'm very glad to hear that. I was sitting here giddy the whole time you were saying that. You kept going. I was like, thank God.
So, okay, question, Shannon, I have a question for you real quick. Shannon, was this your first PNR novel, or have you been reading PNR before?
Oh, girl, I've been reading paranormal. I have like paperbacks on my shelf that have creases in them from 20 years ago. So I am a big paranormal reader. So for me, they kind of process different. Like I said, there's paranormal you read, and there's paranormal you read and read and read and read. And this was definitely the latter, for sure. It would just, there's something about it. It was just different enough and had enough creative elements that it just had that extra something to it.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm glad you said that, because I think that's important for authors to know when they touch something that you're like, this is a book I'm going to read or listen to, or read and listen to again and again and again, because yes, I know the story, but I love the characters and I love reading their story again. And there are things that I find when I read something the second time, the third time, the fourth time, that I pick up on that I didn't get the first time. There's stuff I miss because I'm focused on one thing or one person or one element, that when I go back to it the next time, I focus on something else and I get something completely different out of the story that I missed the first time. And this is definitely one of those.
Yeah. And for me, Michelle said, hey, Patricia's book only has like so many reviews. Will you listen to the audiobook? And I went, sure. And then it was like, I'm sending Michelle and Patricia things going, this isn't normal. I'm not supposed to be in love with a half angel, half demon. No. But I love it so much. Michelle, you're going to like, it's all your fault.
She's a bad.
I own it.
But I do have a book, that a series that I've read that is paranormal. It's an alien series. And I can tell you the first 5 words in the sentence. And I can visualize her throwing her coffee and running down the hallway to get the alarm. So yeah, those kind of books, they stick in your head.
They
just
stick.
like sitting there and, you know, he's turning into a Yeti and she's like, what is that?
Is anybody else seeing this? That moment of, am I the only one seeing this?
Yeah, am I the only one not freaking out right now? Why am I the only one not freaking out? Yeah. So,
yes.
and I'm gonna say this because Patricia already knows how much I love her, but you're just one of those people that bring light to the world. So don't stop writing. Don't stop giving yourself into those stories, because we absorb every bit of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Love you too.
Yeah. And it's a special kind of author who you can say, I really connect and I appreciate everything that you do. And I know Patricia has been to Charm City, and I've seen you at other events, and I always kind of try to gravitate over towards you because you're just,
we love her.
Yes, we adore you. We love you. You're just light, joy. And it's just wonderful to just hang with you, because there's a comfort. I can be very socially awkward. Shut up, Susie. And I can be very socially awkward. And Susie knows this from the first time we met in Philly couple years ago, but I think everybody knows this already. But you always have a comfort there. You exude acceptance. And that for a shy reader is really important for me.
I think she puts people at ease
Yes.
in
Yes.
whatever environment they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the
Thank you.
funny thing is that she will be the first to tell you that she's awkward too, just like the rest of us.
But
Like
don't you think
she sent me a message and even said that, you know, like, I'm a little awkward, but just come talk to me.
Go ahead, Julie. You're going to say it. I know it. You're saying what I'm thinking. What I'm saying, or saying what I'm thinking. Yeah.
didn't we just talk about this in our group chat? I'm looking. Just that we awkward people gravitate to each other, and there's something like a
comfort.
force field that brings us together. And
Yes, the weird in me recognizes the weird in you.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. So if you see Patricia at a signing, go over and say hi, no matter what, whether you've read a book or
Yep.
not. Go grab a book, go say hi. She is extraordinarily kind, and it just has that force field of acceptance and joy. And we really appreciate you hanging out with us, talking about sin, talking about what's coming next, what came before, little pieces of your life. I think what social media has its downfalls, but one of its definite perks and benefits is that it has brought together so many amazing people and given us a space to connect and to find our people, and to support those people. So yeah, Romancelandia has become kind of my happy space, and met some of my very, very best friends who are more like sisters to me than friends, and support those authors. Patricia, how can we continue to support you in your endeavors in writing and doing events and putting out books that we love and we want to read? How can we do that?
Really, just like the best thing you can do for any author really is just to talk about their books and to suggest their books to other people, because the hardest thing is being noticed. There are so many authors, and there's so many amazing authors. Like, it's not, publishing is very easy these days. Yes, it can be expensive, but anyone can publish a book, and so it's just this huge crowd, and we're all just in there, and we're all together, and it's very hard to like rise above, because again, there are so many amazing authors. And so the hardest thing for us to do is to actually just get our voices out there. And plus, I think when it comes from a reader, like, I am supposed to hype up my books. I am supposed to tell you Storm of Sin is amazing. Storm of Sin is fantastic. You should absolutely read it. You should listen to it. But it's like anything, like anything that a person creates, they are supposed to want to share. It means more when someone else hypes you up and hypes up your books. Like, to have a reader say, this book changed my life, or this book changed how I see paranormal romance. This book got me started on, reading 20 other books by the author. Like, that type of thing, that type of message is really the best possible thing. So often, like, a lot of I see in a lot of Facebook groups, people ask for book recommendations, and it's always the same authors getting recommended, and they absolutely should be recommended. They're amazing authors. But like, when you see posts like that, and you know of an author that you love, who is a bit of a smaller author, recommend their books, whether it's mine or anybody else's. But just recommend books to people. Recommend the books that you love and the authors that you love. Share their books, talk about them. That is really the best gift you can give any of your favorite authors. And then also, like, if one of their books particularly moved you, send them an email. because you never know, like some of the best emails I have gotten have come on days when I wanted to give up. And every author at some point wants to give up. Even if it's just, I'm having a bad day, like I have a headache, I have a migraine, I've had a migraine for 3 days, I don't want to do this anymore. Like we all have those days, and sometimes they're transient and sometimes they last longer. But yeah, no author that I know has ever said, oh, I wish this reader did not tell me how much they loved my book.
Yeah.
I was going to say, an author friend of mine received an email today that literally had her in tears. And she's like, it fuels you as an author. It fuels you.
Yep.
It validates why you do what you do.
It does.
Yes, because this is hard. This is, and writing is a very solitary thing. So we do it in a vacuum. And even though we have beta readers and editors and proofreaders and friends and PAs, like at the end of the day, it is us in front of a computer, just in our own heads. And so sometimes as much as like I can look at any of my books and say, yeah, this is a good book, but are the readers going to like it? I don't know. Maybe this is like, we all have that worry of maybe this is the book that lands wrong. Maybe this is the book that just doesn't hit. And if it doesn't, then what do I do? Is it, and why? And so, yeah, we all have those fears and that imposter syndrome. And so, yeah, sometimes those emails are just what we need to keep going.
Yeah, I agree. So send a note, tell Patricia how much you love her. Continue to tell the authors you love how much you love them. Share their books, review if you feel called, to pop a review onto a retail site or Goodreads, or apparently there's all these other things out there that I'm now discovering do reviews. So I'm looking into those too, but support the authors you love. And Patricia, thank you again so much for hanging out with us, for chatting about Storm of Sen and your other books and your life and your experiences and everything else. So if nobody else has anything, we're gonna log off. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for having me.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Thank you.